Ladies and gentlemen, it should come as no surprise that I have very limited experience in the world of podcasting. This is my second ever episode. My first episode aired just 1 week ago, and that's it. That's the extent of what I've done in the podcast world. But it has become very clear to me, even with just one episode, that you occasionally get conversations with people who are just on a higher plane of existence. And honestly, this is what I believe when I sat down and talked to the wonderful, talented Kristina Lao. We talked for 55 minutes to an hour, just about the world of music, the world of entertainment, how harsh it can be, how difficult it can be to find your feet. But really, we nailed down the ways that people who aren't as confident in their own abilities can gain that self-confidence. Because of the length of that chat, that podcast that we had, I had no choice but to split it into two parts because I felt that the information provided by Kristina was just too valuable to cut out. And episode 2 of this podcast is no different from episode 1 in that regard. I've already received a lot of feedback about how much episode 1 has helped those people. And episode 2 is just as insightful, if not more insightful, than episode number 1. So if you haven't checked out episode number 1 of the Movement podcast yet, make sure you go back and take a listen before you jump into this one. If you have, well then, welcome back to those who stopped and went back. But here is part number 2 of my conversation with Kristina Lao on self-confidence, and also episode number 2 of the Movement podcast. In a very crowded art, music, and entertainment industry, it can be hard to find your voice in the sea of millions of people trying to be just like you. If you're like me and want to learn how to stand out amongst the crowd, then you're in the right place. Join me as I sit down with some of the industry's brightest minds and uncover the secrets involved in making it in your chosen field. This is the Movement Podcast.
If you had all the money in the world, your choices then, that you, when you daydream and you think about it, those should be the way that you emanate in terms of how you go into a room. And I don't know if that makes sense, but like for me, for example, if I had all the money in the world, I would be sharing the songs that I feel best about because I feel great about them and because I love to share them. Yes. There wouldn't be anything else. If I had all the money in the world, I would, and someone said to me, hey, like you said to me, hey, where can I find X, Y, and Z? And I had a document, I would send it without a second thought.
Yeah.
And I've actually made lists and done those things because I've asked myself that question first. If I had all the money in the world and it didn't matter what anyone thought of me or what anyone said to me or and I didn't need anything, how would I be then?
Yeah.
And I do that. And then I close my eyes, I take a breath, and then I walk into the room.
That's beautiful. Honestly, I just love that outlook. I love a lot of your outlooks. I feel, and I know I've probably spent a lot of time tooting your horn here in this podcast here, but I do truly respect that outlook. It's sort of a way of being in a position to give everything when I guess you're not technically in the position to give everything, you just want to give. And you're in a position, you're in the strongest position you could be in. Mm-hmm. And I think that's whenever it comes to anything, when you're going for a job interview, when you're going for an audition, and I know that fear gets in the way. I struggle so badly with stage fright. For so long I struggled with screen fright, and it comes in waves for me, and I'll deal with it, and we all will. But put yourself in your strongest position, and that is removing these stories that we tell ourselves about who we are, what we can do, what value we're going to provide, and how others perceive us. That those things are dangerous. And they also, if you go back to a couple of those things, you look at it and you're like, I have no control over any of those things. So I read a quote the other day that I loved, and it was something like, oh
gosh, I think it was something like worry is just making a wish for your fears to happen.
Making a wish for your fears to happen.
Yeah, when you worry about something, all you're doing is putting emphasis on a thing that you don't want.
Wow.
And you think about it and you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. And then you're like, wow, I do that all the time. Like I was driving today and I was like letting my thoughts kind of pass through. I do my meditating in the mornings before I leave for work and then, or auditions. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of just running on a spinning wheel. And we do this when we write our songs.
We do.
And we do this when we go, oh, we're done. Oh, we're not done. Oh, we are done. And then someone says, oh, maybe. And you're like, I shouldn't have asked that question. And now I've like opened this can of worms. The reality is we're artists. We have a drama llama in the room with us all the time. We need to recognize that as artists, our job is to pull out things from the surface. So our hearts are typically more like they're closer to the surface than someone who doesn't have to access that all the time. We need easy access to our hearts. But as a result, we have an obligation to ourselves and a responsibility to our mental and emotional and soul health to recognize when that's not an appropriate time to be using that same easy access point. Yeah. So as an artist, go back to your heart and really take that to heart and say, okay, is this now time? Is it time for me to be ruminating? Because we're creating these neural pathways and our brains they want the path of least resistance, right? Yes. So if you're used to thinking a certain way, there's a great talk, I think it's Tom Bilyeu that talks about this, interview someone about it.
Send me the link, we'll throw it down at the bottom of this.
And it's about brainwashing yourself. And it's like, these are the neurological paths that are created, and then it becomes a habit, and then it becomes a behavior, and then it becomes a personality. And so when we catch them, and I say we, I don't like the word we, so when I catch it in myself, I stop and say, okay, do I want that? Can I control the outcome? Is this how I'd like to be? And what is it serving? My artist self, my soul evolution, or my social consciousness evolution?
Is this the right time for it? When it's happening, is it the right time?
I think, yeah.
It's interesting because you kind of answered my next question. Because I was going to say, when you go back to that worry quote, say when you're worried, you're kind of looking at fears. But we always say that worrying is such a good thing from an artist standpoint, which is what you just described. From a writing standpoint, from a creative standpoint, that just rush of ideas, that spiral, that I don't know what you can even call it in a sense. I don't have the words for it right now in my mind. We're taught to embrace that, but at the same time, that quote makes so much sense.
Well, I have an analogy for you that I came up with the other day when I came off set, and I realized that for the longest time I had been behaving like a hurricane, and people were calling me a force of nature. And I really liked that. I really took it as a compliment. And then I looked at the hurricane that I was creating and being, and I realized that hurricanes are incredible forces of nature, but they pick up all of the shit around them. So they take everything with them. They take bits of houses. They take someone out. They take Harry with them. They take all of these things and people and elements.
Everyone into that craziness.
And they become this kind of really dangerous force that becomes uncontrollable because it's filled with houses and other random bits of debris and cows and, and then I thought about riding thermals and going up. And when you paraglide, if you've ever paraglided or hang glided or any of those things.
I want to, but I haven't.
One day, maybe.
One day.
You catch a thermal. So you put it out there, and sometimes you're just like kind of coasting, you're on the same path, but you're waiting for an opportunity, but you're not trying to control the wind.
Right.
You're just prepared to ride it.
You're just prepared for the wind to come, and you're prepared to go with it.
So instead of being the hurricane, I would like to ride the thermals.
That is awesome. Yeah. We're going to take a little bit of a step back, I guess, for the earlier question that you said Jay, was it, that asked you? That was his name?
Yes. Yep.
Jay asked
Jay
you.
Dickman.
He was asking about networking as a shy or a socially awkward individual. And I have a question here that may relate somewhat to that I feel is good to bring up. It's you hear many stories about the stay-at-home artist. They're recording in their bedroom and then, they're making it they're making it big. They're never going outside. They're never stepping out their door. You know, an example that I've heard, even though it's not the best example, is Gautier's somebody that I used to know. That was created entirely in his basement, and he just sent out to somebody, and it hit people, and now he's massive. So, on that note, for you, is it really a feasible way in the industry, or going back to I'm going to use community building for you.
Community
going
building.
back to the community building, is that necessary in a sense? I don't know if necessary is the right word. Is it the best way?
Is what the best way? Networking?
Community building.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes. Is community building? There is no best way.
Yeah.
There is no best way. I'm going to quote Garth Richardson, who is one of the founders of Nimbus, who quotes his father, I believe, Jack Richardson, when he says, "Great songs sell." If you're an artist, and that's, I mean, it's so easy to say, and it's so difficult to do. And I think the reality is, again, it comes back to perspective.
Yeah.
If I only wanted to act in Hollywood blockbuster, Tomb Raider-esque action films, and I got that specific about my career, then maybe I need to question why I wanted to be doing that in the first place. And if the answer is when you position this, I think the danger that I find with a lot of people who are coming into the industry is they think that their definition of success is to be an artist on stage performing at festivals, or, you know, one of the very, very few people.
Coachella.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with having that as a dream. But you also have a responsibility to know and fall in love with the industry as it is and get involved with it. And that's where I think the difference between actors and songwriters that I found here is so vast. Actors they just want to get their hands on a good script. For most of my friends who are actors, you want to get a good script, you want to play, you want to have a good time, you want to study. Those things are all worth a lot of money and time for actors. And I think there are a lot of songwriters who do that, but I think a lot of people who are starting out have not been given the resources or the education or the role modeling to hear that that's really what you can be celebrating. So to go back to your question, is networking the right way? No, it's not the right way. There is no right way. Is community building the right way? No. Think about what you are doing and why you are doing it, and then figure out how to make that work. And it might be that you serve for, like, in hospitality in a restaurant and for a living, and you're making 3 times the amount of money, but you have all of the mental real estate available to you to write your songs. Do that. If that's what helps you to feel good and make it sustainable every day, that's your right move. And when that changes, great. For me, I love the advocacy. I love the business side of things. I also have to be very careful not to let that fully take over.
Sure.
So I'm building my career. And instead of becoming just a songwriter, just an actor, I, like you, have a commitment to a much bigger picture social responsibility. And my goals are more than the channels that I choose at this whatever phase in my life.
So more than just how you choose to present yourself or where you choose to present yourself. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I decided to start this. I felt like I had a bigger responsibility, and you've touched on this before. It's one of your motivators is the fact that you do feel you've got this bigger responsibility in the world, that you were put here to change maybe just one person's mind about something, or change one person's perspective, or change the way one person does something to better suit themselves, to make it easier for themselves to progress in what it is that they want to do. Maybe it's something as simple as that, but we both seem to have this belief that we need to do that in some way, and we need to get that out, whether that's in music, or whether that's in acting, whether that's in a podcast, or a forum page, or a movement of any kind.
Conversation with someone over a cup of tea.
Or a conversation with somebody over a cup of tea.
I think that my career coach made it very clear to me that he helped me to find in my core values what those are. And I would highly recommend anyone to kind of look at their core values or core beliefs. And for me, the thing that I hold most valuable above everything else is freedom. But freedom of choice.
Right.
And my channel, freedom of choice, and I'm so committed to helping people find their own freedom of expression, but freedom of expression provides you with choice. If you have a choice, then you have freedom. And for me, if that means that my songs feel the best for me to kind of inspire rather than make someone change or change someone, I'd like to inspire them to do whatever is right for them. Because we're all at different stages,
That's sort of how I corrected myself at the end. I realized I'm not meaning to force somebody into something or anything. I'm meaning to, we feel like we need to guide someone in a direction that works for them.
Yeah, or present them with information. That's all we can do, is present people with information and celebrate kind of where they're at, which I'm going to say that and get off my high horse because I can be very judgmental. So I try not to do that because that just means that I'm being very judgmental about myself, which is where it comes from anyway, isn't it, really? So, yeah, freedom of choice. And networking isn't the right way to go. The right way to go is the way that feels sustainable for you. And I think do your research. Yeah. Figure out why you're doing what you're doing. Figure out if there's a deeper reason.
Self-reflection, basically. Talk yourself into the why. I think that's a big part of anybody's, I guess, in an industry like this, you could call it anybody's business model, but I don't really want to say it's a business model because it's more.
Oh, sure it is. This is an industry. It's a business.
Yeah, the why is the main thing we're looking at.
Yeah, what's your personal mission statement? Why do you do what you do?
And if I was to give any advice with my very limited knowledge as a 20-year-old and still trying to find my feet.
We always are, darling, don't worry.
I'm hoping you'll echo this is find yourself. Find who you are, what you're doing it for, and why it means as much to you as it does.
Yeah, and then find ways to remind yourself so that those become your motivators.
Yeah. Well, Kristina, it was an absolute pleasure sitting down, talking to you. I hope we can do it again really, really soon. I really want to do a part 2 of this because this was absolutely lovely, and I'm sure you have so many different opinions and things to give out to people. As for everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning into the first episode of the Movement Podcast. Make sure you let me know who you'd like me to sit down with, because that's big for me, is if you have anybody you know about, or if you have anybody you know about, you want to bring in, you want to hear insight from them, you want to hear what they have to say about this extremely challenging music industry and entertainment industry. Let me know. There's people out there who would love to sit down, and there's somebody here who would love to speak to them. So
there you go.
Make sure you let me know in comment sections on YouTube. Go on our website. Go on our blogs. They'll all be linked down below. We'll check out that TED Talk. She's going to send it to me.
I don't think it's a TED Talk.
It's not a TED Talk?
It's a link to it.
It's a talk.
It's a link. It's a talk.
It's a talk. It's somebody's take on mind waves, and I feel like that would be really useful for a lot of people. Of course, that's a very vague and summed up way of putting what the talk is. But at the same time, the movement is here to help struggling artists and music business members get the answers to their burning questions about where you can go to make it in your chosen field, or guide you, as we were talking, into where you think you'd like to go. Kristina joined the movement, and now it's your turn. Thank you so much. This has been the Movement Podcast, a podcast where we sit down with some of the industry's brightest minds and look at the secrets of making it in your chosen field. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and share this all with your friends. What are you waiting for? It's time to join the movement.